Today we are going to the Mall of Africa to go buy a new smartphone. Now the purpose of this video or vlog is not to show the experience, but rather to test if it's possible to create a decent YouTube video using a very cheap phone. So this phone is called the cubot hafury. You've probably never heard of it, and that's kind of the point. So it was like a very cheap phone, so we're going to see if it's actually going to produce an okay enough quality. Now I am using a special microphone, so this sound is not coming straight from the phone's microphone, otherwise it would be a total disaster. I would have loved to have an ultra-wide camera right over here. So here we are at the Apple store, just checking out some of the demo models they have over here, including trying out the Apple Pencil, because I don't have an official Apple Pencil, I just have all those fake ones. So I was just trying to see if the whole pressure sensitivity thing is actually worth paying like 3 times more for like an official pencil. So here we are now trying out the Apple smart keyboard thing, and the keys feel very weird on this thing. It kind of feels like the same as typing on a flat surface, a hard flat surface. It's not like a normal keyboard in any way. Then here we're trying out the iPad mini. You can see how it compares to my hand. It's honestly really small. You could almost use it with one hand, but unfortunately you can't actually reach the corners of the screen when using it with one hand. But it's really nice and small. You could easily fit this thing inside of a handbag or a bag, and that's what makes it special. Then here we have the big one, 12.9 inches iPad Pro with the incredibly overpriced Apple Magic Keyboard, whatever it's called. So I was trying it out, and honestly, it didn't really impress me. It just feels like a generic keyboard and mouse, or keyboard and trackpad that you can find for like maybe $100. Then here we're just looking at this drone, and here we have the big iPhone 14 Pro Max. This thing is just way too big, honestly. I don't understand why you'd buy such a big phone. I can't even reach the corner of the screen with one hand. In fact, the phone that I'm going to buy today on this vlog already feels way too big for me. So I wouldn't know why I'd want to get something as big as this Pro Max. Then here we are just testing out the cameras, the ultra wide, the telephoto, all those things. Here we have a display case displaying all of Apple's AirPods. AirPods 1, the AirPods 3, and the Pros. Here we have the Apple Watch, which only really is a great purchase if you're buying an iPhone. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting your money. Then I was surprised to see some sim racing equipment over here at BT Games. They have a couple of things like some wheelbases, a shifter, that kind of stuff, and you can see my phone just struggling over there as I show you the shelf of games. Honestly, I haven't seen the shelf of games in literally years, because these days pretty much every game I buy digital, so seeing these shelves and picking out the game is something I haven't done in like maybe a decade. Then we are now in one of these stores. I think that this is the official Samsung store, and here we're checking out the Tab S8. I'm not sure if they have a Plus version or if this is just the only version they have, but this thing is gigantic. You're basically holding a computer monitor in your hands, and I just think this is way too much tablet. Like, no one needs this much. But then I was trying out Samsung Dex, and I think that's the only real purpose of having such a big screen, the ability to have multiple windows on the screen and do like lots of dragging and dropping like you would with a normal laptop or desktop computer. Then here we've got the latest Samsung phones, the A04, the A54, which is the one that I'm just testing out right now. It's still got the teardrop notch you can see at the top of the screen. Some people are mad about that, but honestly, I think 99% of the people who are gonna buy this phone honestly don't care. Then we got the A54, which is the one of the options that I am considering buying right now. This one has a slightly smaller screen than the A34 for some reason, despite the fact that it costs like almost twice as much. So the A54 has a 6.4 inch screen, which is actually a downgrade from last year's A53, which had a 6.5 inch screen. That's a thing that lots of people complained about. But honestly, if you showed this phone to me randomly, I honestly wouldn't care about that 0.1 inch of a difference. Then here I am opening up the camera on the A34. This phone has a 6.7 inch screen and a Dimensity 1080 processor. So anyways, I went out of the Samsung store. I was now just kind of walking around. Then I found another phone store. This time we got to try out the Samsung Ultra. I almost said Note because of the square design. Of course, I had to come in and check out the 100x zoom that this phone has, because that's the talking point and what makes it a better option than the iPhone, because it has the most insane zoom ever. And from this distance, I was honestly impressed at the fact that I could see the whole cashier's word over there. Like, that is impressive. And if I had the money, I'd totally buy this phone. But unfortunately, right now, I just can't afford it. Then you also have the S23 Plus, which compared to the Ultra has, I think, 1 or 2 less cameras. I'm not sure, but it has more or less the same processor, but a slightly smaller screen, and has the rounded corners, unlike the Samsung Ultra. You can see just how big that phone is. I can barely reach the corner of the screen, even with my big hands. So I can only imagine how much most people struggle with such a phone. Then here I am trying out the Samsung S21 Fan Edition. So some people are saying you should buy this phone instead of the A54, but unfortunately in my country, this one is actually about 1,000 Rand more expensive, about $60 to $100 more expensive, so it wasn't an option for me. But this phone has a 3x zoom telephoto camera, unlike the A54, which just only has 2x zoom, but digital. So if you like zooming, this one might actually be a bit worth the extra price. Unfortunately, battery life is worse than on the A54. Then of course there's the Samsung charger, incredibly expensive, 500 Rand, about $30. I was thinking of maybe getting this one because it has 45 watts, but really, the issue is there's this very specific technology that Samsung needs you to use, which is called PPS, and yeah, it's complex, I won't explain it. Then you're my first time ever holding a foldable phone in my hands, and this outside screen is honestly quite big. I don't understand why they didn't include more features on this thing. It just seems to be a preview camera, if you want to take like high quality selfies, but nothing more. And the hinge was like nice and firm. It won't like move around on its own unless you actually push it. Like you need quite a bit of force to do that. But once again, it's one of those phones that is way too expensive for me, so I'm not picking it up. Then here we have the Vivo V25 and the V25e, even though the V27 is already out. So I'm not sure why they still have these ones here. I did do a Google search afterwards, and unfortunately, these things aren't actually available. The V27 wasn't available at the time, but I did check now and it is in the country. And then I surprisingly found a Logitech G29. Now, as an owner or previous owner of a Thrustmaster TT48, I had to give this a try, and honestly, this one feels very cheap. It feels like an actual toy. For 6,000 Rand, that thing feels like it's way too cheap. Like it feels like it costs like 5 times less. Then here we of course have a very lightweight gaming mouse, and obviously with being lightweight, it felt cheap, but I'm guessing when weight is the only consideration, the whole it feels premium thing doesn't really matter. Then we have a gaming PC over here, but shockingly they did not include a single game in the storage for us to test out. Then here we have what looks to be some sort of a UPS system. Then here is my first time ever picking up the PlayStation 5 controller. Now unfortunately I couldn't try any games on it, so I actually don't know if it's good. Then we have these headphones with RGB, which looks cool. The ear cups feel pretty soft, but tons of people have probably put their ears on there, so I wouldn't touch it. So anyways, here's the phone I decided on using. It's the Samsung Galaxy A54. I mainly just bought this because, well, reviews. Samsung is genuinely a popular brand, so if I make a video about this phone, I am guaranteed to get views.